Keep that up for another 8,000 at bats. He drives this one deep left field toward the wall. It's out of here.
There we go, Gary, and there we go, Luis Angel Acuña. Good morning, all you amazing Mets fans. First chiming in, wherever you're chiming in from, no matter the time zone, it doesn't matter. This video is first posted at 8:30 a.m. September 18th, after the Mets absolutely took care of business for the series victory against the Washington Nationals, 10-1. As many of you guys and gals, I'm sure, are sipping that morning coffee, watching our post-game show from this past night. Make sure to check it out in case you haven't already, folks. And had everything to do with Pete Alonso and Luis Angel Acuña with the absolute gorgeous bomb. Look at this swing that we just saw. Man, oh man, am I excited to get into this one. I want to see your reactions and thoughts down below in the comments right away as we do a nice deep dive on Luis Angel Acuña. Why is he shining as bright as he is right now? Is this at all sustainable? What exactly is he doing to make an immediate impact for this Mets team? Pete Alonso is finally impacting this team both on and off the field in ways that we have been dying for pretty much all season long, and it could not come at a more vital time for this club without Francisco Lindor and the wild card, folks. You probably saw, in case you didn't watch the game or the post-game show yet, the Mets have gained ground. To what degree, and is this sustainable as well with their road ahead? That and more is what we're going to get into, folks. So make sure you smash that like and subscribe on your way in for our latest Big Mets update segment on the following topics. Let me know your thoughts initially in the comments down below before we dive into everything. And shout out to our amazing sponsor, as always, at BetUS, that has you covered all your sports betting needs. Check them out today by going to betus.com.pa and using Wardy's promo code YouTube150. That is YouTube150. That way you too get a 150% bonus on your first deposit and then a 125% bonus on your second and your third. Shout out to them as always, and shout out to you guys because I cannot get enough of Luis Angel Acuña. As many of you guys know, I had the privilege of being in attendance for his MLB debut in Philly. Sadly, the Mets lost that game after being up 4-0 to drop it 6-4, but there was one commonality out of that one. It was the brilliance of Luis Angel Acuña in his debut, and that has carried over pretty much every time he has been out there since, in a very small sample size, we are aware. But Ronald's brother, there was a lot of, skepticism with him after the Mets acquired him in the Max Scherzer trade a year plus ago from the Texas Rangers, saying, oh, this guy's nothing more than a slap hitter. He can't go gap to gap. He can't provide any power. He is a shell of his brother in that sense. Well, not so much the case we're seeing right now at the MLB level. He's batting over 400 of roughly 1,300 OPS throughout 2 starts and appearing in 3 games thus far. I'd say that's a pretty good, not sample size rather, but a pretty good start to the young man's career. At just 5'8", and he's pretty much right around the same size as me because I'm a short schmuck myself. He's not a schmuck I am, that I always joke about. If you know here on the channel. You guys are amazing for that. But the guy's broad, he's built, and he looks uber athletic, and that's where the 40 stolen bags come into play from his strong season there at AAA Syracuse. But what we didn't see at AAA Syracuse all that much was the power implementation. Rocking a 660 to 670 OPS throughout the year, a 260 average, Luis Angel Acuña was far from brilliant at the AAA level offensively outside the stolen bags, but what he has showcased at the MLB level is all the more impressive. It's not just the fact that he recorded 3 hits in this game, it was just a triple shy of this cycle and just his second career start in this New York Mets lineup. It's the mental toughness. It's the ability to rebound after having himself a brutal defensive error that ultimately allowed the Nationals to score a run. He had a routine play there to catch a ball there at second base. He misses it entirely. A run ultimately scores not long after. And what does he do to respond to this? He does it the best way possible by driving in his first run of his career, his first RBI rather. We saw Luis Angel Acuña with a single, with the double, and ultimately that home run to put the cherry on top to get the Mets' 10th run in their 10-1 victory over the Washington Nationals. That swing was absolutely gorgeous. Luis Angel Acuña's defense continues to look very strong if you exclude that error there at second base, especially when he's handling those routine grounders there, either going to second on the force out or doing the simple throw there to Pete Alonso at first. Luis Angel Acuña has held his own. The speed has been tremendous. Already the fastest guy on the roster, not named someone in the speed skating Olympian himself, and Eddie Alvarez. And now as we look at Luis Angel Acuña, folks, I'm not only impressed with the mental toughness that he is showing, his ability to rebound after what a lot of young players could find themselves stuck in their head after a tight error like that, that inning prior to him getting the heroics that he did on the offensive end. This is an Acuña that looks locked in right in the heart of a deep playoff race for this Mets team. It's one thing to make your MLB debut and have immediate success. It's another to do it when the Mets are in tooth and nail clawing their way to make sure that they not only make playoffs, but potentially secure a spot better than the top three. Because right now, we saw the Mets were the third spot. They are no longer in that spot at the time of recording this, at least for good reasons, because they are higher. Luisangel Acuña, my question to each and every one of you guys watching this is the following. Do you think this is at all sustainable? With Francisco Lindor expected to return the Mets as early as the Philadelphia Phillies series, Acuña's playing time will be a little bit more limited, and I'd imagine he may go into a bit more of a platoon role there with Jose Iglesias at second base once Lindor is officially back in the lineup, and they're going to make sure he's there every day. Not to denounce Acuña's brilliance, but this is Francisco Lindor. All the more reason why Acuña's run has been that impressive, because he's filling in the shoes of the leading MVP candidate out of the National League, not named Shohei Ohtani, because unlike Shohei, Francisco Lindor is actually deserving of this when you look at WAR, when you look at the overall production, great defense, great offense all year round outside of the first month and a half of the season or so, to fill in those shoes as brilliantly as Acuña has done, even in this small sample size, is nothing to scoff at, and it gives me a lot of shades of Ronnie Mauricio. Seriously, when I talked about this in my post-game show last night, I'll say it again, between Brett Beatty, Francisco Alvarez, Mark Vientos, all three of those guys did not have roaring starts to their MLB careers when they made their debuts, but there was one thing that stood out. It was Ronnie Mauricio hitting the ball well as soon as he was called up and showcasing strong defense and elite base running ability. Same is now the case with Luisangel Acuña. There's just something about these guys in which they have this it factor right away. They look to be here. They're born to be New York Mets. They're born to be part of this market and understanding how our fans are going to react. I'm loving everything that Luisangel Acuña is providing to the Mets right now, and as you guys can see, the rookie's all smiles in this one with his home run ball, his first of his career, surely not his last, and I have a feeling a couple years from now, I'm going to look back and say, wow, I was at Luisangel Acuña's MLB debut in Philly, I saw his first hit, and look at the great impact he's having as a core player for the Mets, as they are hopefully having multiple World Series runs throughout his tenure, right? I know I'm getting ahead of myself, I'm just saying, I'm loving what Acuña is doing lately, and even if this dies off, and even if this is a guy that we've already seen the best of this season with him, I greatly appreciate the immediate impact. To fill in those shoes is far from an easy task, and to do it as a rookie with all the pressure on your shoulders and act as calm, cool, and collected as he has done, that in itself is what deserves a major kudos, and that is why we are quickly becoming huge Luisangel Acuña fans. Now, to go from Acuña, let's talk about the man that was leading the way on the offensive end too. And that was Polar Bear Pete Alonso. Pete with arguably his best game of the season, not just because of 3 hits and the huge home run, the 3-run home run, which was a huge nail in the coffin there against the Nationals, but it's the opposite field hitting as well. The 2-run bloop opposite field single, the opposite field double as well, that I thought was one of the better ones that we've seen from Pete all year long, driving that hit off the wall. And then at the core of it, we find out from a key report over this past day that Pete Alonso, that you can tell in the interview I'm about to show you, was not happy that it became public, because he obviously wanted this to stay with the boys, and I understand that. So fair warning, if you see Alonso kind of have the public reaction he does to the following interview, know that's just because he didn't know it became public, what I'm about to explain, and he's very emotional right now, knowing that at the end of the day, this may still be his final homestand as a Met. We all hope that isn't the case, obviously, but that very well is a possibility and a potential reality, and Alonso wants to do everything right by the Mets in this organization down the stretch here, and in the time where Francisco Lindor is out, who is stepping up? It's Polar Bear Pete Alonso at the most vital time. And at the core of it, not only performing on the field that we saw this past night, but also off the field. Listen to the following, folks. Pete Alonso spoke up at a team meeting yesterday in the wake of Francisco Lindor's injury. Mind you, this was before they found out the MRI results that came back clean for Lindor. This was a 3-person held team meeting, and the guys that were leading the way, it was Carlos Mendoza, David Stearns, and yes, a very passionate Pete Alonso. And this is all that needed to be said on that. Bear in mind, again, Pete was a little flustered and pretty emotional in this interview just because of everything going on with the team right now, and knowing that this is kind of a bittersweet thing if this is ultimately the end for him in Queens. But just listen to the following.
I just wanted to, I just wanted to say something from the heart to the fellas, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
And you talked about how important it was to win here for you. For the team and for you, that you wanted to celebrate with these guys.
How did you guys know?
Well, I just chose a story about it.
Oh,
You
okay.
talked to Joel about
Okay.
it, so.
Yeah. Honestly, I just wanted to say some things from the heart, because this place is really special and there's a great fan base here. It's a great city, and I mean, I'm just really fired up because the situation we put ourselves in. I mean, not a lot of people would necessarily see us in this position like probably 4 or 5 months ago. I mean, a lot of people didn't, and for us to be in this position, it's a huge testament to every single player's that's here, and the coaching staff and the organization, because like we've had that inner self-belief.
So shout out to Alonso first and foremost for the team meeting, because this is not something that I expected to hear. Not that Alonso hasn't been a leader for this team, because he has. This hasn't been the case this season as much that we've known in the public eye, knowing Alonso's struggles, knowing it's a walk year for him after denying an extension by the Mets a year ago at the trade deadline, and knowing that Lindor has really stepped up as that go-to guy that the Mets have been calling for out of all their current options on the roster, even Brandon Nimmo for that matter. But to see Pete not only ball out the way that he did, but do it directly after we see just a day removed from this team meeting is telling that the emotions are kicking in, but he's finally locking in a way that we just haven't seen all that much this season. Now, to share some context on Alonso, we all know that across the board, he's having his worst statistical season of his career on all facets. He truly is. Exclude the short 2020 campaign, because that's irrelevant. That doesn't matter. Let's talk about a full sample size here. Pete, when it comes to being at an 800 OPS to 1,000 OPS, night and day difference on how consistent that has been for him this year versus years past, even in 2023, because he still had 46 home runs and what was in many ways to some fans an underwhelming season for him. When it came to clutch hitting, runners in scoring position, high leverage, these are all numbers that he has simply plummeted as one of the worst hitters in the Mets lineup this season in that regard. But here's the thing, all those numbers mean absolutely nothing if Pete Alonso just goes out there and plays this game that we've been dying for all season long. And this becomes more consistent. If Pete Alonso continues to help carry the Mets on his back the way that we've seen him do time and time again over the years since he made his debut in 2019, great things are surely going to happen for this Mets team that provides so much more power and depth to this lineup, and potentially protection for a guy, and say, you know, not necessarily protection, because if JDM is in front of him, yes, if not, no, but JD Martinez is a guy that's dealt with plenty of ailments, struggles this year on the consistency front, and I'd imagine that Pete Alonso can really get going. That's only going to help the odds of those two finally being that bash duo that we all were hoping and dying them to be all season long, that they sadly were really very little in unison with for the vast majority of the 2024 calendar year. Pete Alonso currently repping right around a 250 average and finally over 800 OPS, looking to do more damage against the Nationals, and then that huge 4-game set against the Phillies to wrap up the Mets homestand. Now, before we get out of here, folks, as I mentioned, the Mets right now, as we take a look, are currently in a nice wild card spot, 2 games up on the Atlanta Braves, who's Alexis Diaz, a younger brother of Edwin, shut the door on Atlanta there in the 9th to secure the win for the Reds. And the Arizona Diamondbacks somehow, someway lost to the Colorado Rockies, so the Mets actually have the tiebreaker, and they are technically the 3rd wild card. This graphic is actually not accurate because the tiebreaker alone goes to the Mets, so they should be the 2nd wild card now officially in that spot, even though that this graphic is saying otherwise at the moment. Knowing that they have the tiebreaker not only against the Arizona Diamondbacks but also the San Diego Padres is huge. And the same way we said it was huge a month plus ago, the same way we're going to say it's huge all the way at the end of the season, when that's likely going to come into play for the Mets and their playoff standing, should hopefully, God willing, knocking on wood, they find themselves in postseason play. The Mets need to continue to control their destiny that we're all very aware of, take care of business against the Nationals, fingers crossed you secure the series sweep there, and then have yourself a massive series against a Phillies team that, yes, those pitching matchups won't be easy, but the Mets have also had the best rotation in all of baseball post All-Star break. While the National League has been brilliant, their bullpen has been for the most part, very strong over the past month. Yes, they've had some hiccups there, but it has been anything overly concerning on the grand scheme of things. The offense has, funny enough, been their most inconsistent thing the past month plus. Just control their destiny, and good things are going to happen for the squad. And I have all the utmost faith and belief that they're going to get where they want to be, because this team has been pretty much repping the best record in Major League Baseball since the end of May. And that is a very big sample size now. The majority of the regular season we're talking about. Enough of writing off this Mets team. They control their destiny, and they're about to control their way, fingers crossed, into that playoff spot. permanently, securely, to actually be in there and have themselves that wild card series kickoff, whoever it may be against. But guys and gals, that is going to do it for the show. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on not only Acuña's brilliant play, Pete Alonso stepping up as a true leader, something we haven't seen all that much this season, and ultimately the wild card standings. And will the Mets be able to stay afloat there in that second spot, or will they find themselves hopping back to third? There's one good thing I can leave you with, is that at least for the next 24 hours, if not 48, the Mets will be staying in a playoff spot. Finally, for a change, they will go more than a day where they don't have to worry about they're going to find themselves tied or falling right back out of things. So that is what I'll leave you with, everybody. Thank you all so much for the endless support. Let's effing go Mets, and I will see you all for our latest post-game coverage, hopefully after that series sweep. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out.